unstoppable kick-ass confidence. Are you ready?
Welcome to the Raw and Unscripted Show with Christopher Rausch, where we help you overcome your self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. Now please welcome our host, Christopher Rausch.
What's going on, rock stars? Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Raw and Unscripted Show, 2026 version. Holy shit, it's 2026. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, well, mostly adult ages listening to this podcast. Thank you for being here. It is January 2026, and I'm happy to say Happy New Year. Hope you had a beautiful holiday wherever you celebrate, whatever you celebrate, how you celebrate. I hope you celebrate something. Celebrate being alive, right? Here we are on this beautiful spinning blue marble in space, enjoying the ride. I hope, right? And not every day is great. I will tell you that. I have been in bed for the last 24 hours. I've been sick for the last 6 months and dealing with stuff, my iron and all sorts of things, but still you get up and show up. I was laying in bed earlier, sweating and feeling like shit. And I'm like, I got to do the podcast. I didn't do one last week. And oh my God, I feel like crap. And then I was watching these other podcasts and I'm like, you know what? The difference between somebody who's great and somebody who is awesome is the fact that we do things even when we don't feel like it. And I want to talk about that on the show tonight. But last week, we didn't do a podcast. I took a break and I wanted to set the example. So there was no podcast last week. We actually did a video replay on YouTube and all the social medias. We did it of show number 33. Now, Chris, why is show 33 so interesting? Chris, why did you play that show last week and not post it as a podcast? Well, it's because it's the way it looks. It shows where I started. Now you can see my studio is beautiful and brighted and lighted and, you know, microphone and all other stuff. But I started with a different microphone. It's actually over there. Different microphone, no lighting, no lights back here. You know, it was just kind of the thing. And so I played that last week to show, here's what you do. Here's how you progress. Here is how you stick to the game. And now I didn't realize this. I've been saying the podcast has been on for 6 years. This month, it started 7 years ago. It started in January of 2019. It started the week before I had major back surgery. I had a 2-level fusion. I have 6 screws and 3 rods in my back. And I did it. I started it the week before and I did the podcast every week after, showing the healing journey of going through something that catastrophic. But show number 33 was timely because it was all about resolutions and goals and everything. And I went back and I watched part of it and I thought, you know what, that's timely. That's something that people can dig into. So I didn't put it out on a podcast because I want you guys to go check out the YouTube video. So go to youtube.com, the Christopher Rausch, ChristopherRausch, or you could type in No Excuses Coach. You could type in the Raw and Unscripted Podcast. You could go to rawandunscripted.com. Go check that out. And not only that, not only check out the look and how I haven't aged really in 6 years, which is kind of nice. I mean, I have. But yeah, you know, it just shows the fact that we progress. We make progress. And, you know, through those 7 years, there have been so many times where I wanted to quit the podcast and I wanted to give up because I wasn't getting the numbers. I wasn't getting the validation. I wasn't getting the guests. But guess what? 7 years later, I am so proud of myself. I was sitting there thinking in bed, like 7 years, I have stuck with this podcast for 7 years. I did a live radio show for 5 years before this. So 7 years and all the guests and all the topics and all the different growth that I have experienced and shared with you guys online is there forever. And my wish, my hope is that someday when my 9-year-old son gets older is that he's going to turn on the podcast and he's going to listen to Dad. And he's going to be like, man, Dad's giving great life advice. Because that's what this podcast is all about. This podcast is about sharing information with you guys, sharing my raw emotions, sharing the guests' raw emotions, our journey to let you know that you're not alone. To let you know that this journey is not easy. And yes, it's hard. And yes, it's uncomfortable. And yes, there are plenty of struggles that no one ever sees. Everybody sees me online and they're like, Chris, you're so happy and you're so positive and you always look so energetic. And man, I'd love to hang around you. You seem so fun and da-da-da-da. I'm like, you see me for that time. And that's not that I'm not that person, but in the real world, I deal with pain. I deal with chronic fatigue. I deal with right now low iron and it being anemic. And apparently that's causing all sorts of problems, hot flashes and sweating and all sorts of different things and sleep disruptions and taking medications and all these different things that I've been trying to do to figure out what's going on. You guys don't really see that. I mean, I talk about it here, but you still see me, even though I was in bed for 24 hours, look at me. because this is how I show up. This is how I am. This is who I am. Right. And I get energized when I get in front of the camera. After this, I'm going to take my shirt out. I'm sweating right now, not feeling good. But this podcast tonight is all about lessons. And it's all about lessons and lessons I learned last year and lessons that I was reminded of. And these lessons are life lessons. They're super, super important. And although I talk about them on the podcast here and there, I put them in a list. I just sat there when I was in bed for the last 24 hours and I thought, what lessons have I learned? What rules, what things can I share with everybody that will help them? And I have to make sure that I tell you this, like I'm a go-getter. I will set tons and tons of goals, professional goals, personal goals. I will fill my plate up and I will push myself like no other person. And I've done that all of my life. The last 6 years, especially since I left corporate, I've really tried to embrace just living and being in the moment and not being so gung-ho and not being so in my ego about what I'm accomplishing, what I'm doing, anything like that. Like just enjoy the moment, because so oftentimes we think we'll be happy when. Well, I'll be happy when I have that job. I'll be happy when I get married. I'll be happy when I have kids. I'll be happy when I buy a house. I'll be happy when I have the car. I'll be happy when I have the job. I'll be happy when I retire. I'll be happy when the kids are out of the house. I'll be happy when the dog starts barking. I'll be happy when my wife does, what it is. Like the central core of this message tonight is to be happy where you're at, right? So many people would exchange places for you. Like right now, I'm miserable and I feel like shit and I'm tired of it and I'm frustrated and I'm looking at the medical community and I'm trying all the things and I'm doing the blood tests and all that other stuff. But it's still important. It's still important to show up and to serve yourself. And because nobody else is going to come do it. Nobody's going to come in and say, Chris, you need to do your podcast. It's like, I'm letting you guys down by not being here. And so I took a shower, I got up and I got dressed, changed the sheets on my bed. And I'm like, let's go do this. Let's do this. And so this year, 2025, last year, I should say, I made it a focus to only focus on 3 things: my health, the clutter in my life, and to have fun. It wasn't anything about the podcast growth. I still learn. I didn't read any books hardly at all last year. I gave myself permission. And that is a big word. Sometimes we need permission. We need somebody to tell us to take it easy. You're doing too much, right? We need somebody to give us permission. It's okay to relax. Like my wife, I felt guilty earlier, laying in bed earlier. Normally I used to push myself. I would go to work sick. I would just push myself. I would never relax or ask for help or anything like that. And she's like, babe, just go relax. Just go rest. You need to rest. You're not feeling good. You threw up twice yesterday. You're sweating. You didn't get very much sleep last night. And so sometimes we need that permission. So I gave myself permission last year to not be so gung-ho. The book hasn't been published. I barely did anything on that. I did it quite a bit last year in the beginning of the year, but then I got frustrated with it. And I said, you know what? It doesn't have to be done right now. It's okay if it gets done 6 months from now. It's okay if it gets done next year. I gave myself that permission because I had such weight and such pressure on myself to get it out. Oh, we got to do the book sales and the book marketing. And then I started thinking about that. I'm like, there's a lot to do. And there's some expectations that are hung up in the book coming out. And what is it going to do? How is it going to sell? Is it going to get a lot of attention? It's unlike any other story anybody's ever heard. And if you're new to the podcast, it's a story about my life living with my crazy mother and being a 7th grade homeless dropout who essentially lived in the backseat of a station wagon with 18 cats and 4 dogs. And those were not 4 small dogs. Those were 4 big dogs. In a 1969 Country Squire station wagon, I was homeless for 4 years. I went through all these different challenges. And then I went through continuous challenges with my mother over the remaining years. And it talks about how we deal with aging, how we deal with parents, how we deal with seeing somebody for where they're at and not where we want them to be. So it's an amazing book. I know it's going to change people's lives. I know it's going to give people a lot of clarity, but it is a tough read. It's a tough read for me. I have read it a few times now. And every time I get to a story, I'm like, how is anybody going to believe that all of this happened to one person and he's still sane and he's not in jail, he's not dead? But again, the goals last year: remove the clutter. I got a bunch of stuff around the house, not major, not a hoarder or anything, but there's stuff there that needs to be gone through. I'm not going to use it anymore. Car stuff, yard work stuff. I gave away my lawnmower. I'm not going to use my lawnmower. I haven't used my lawnmower in 12 years. Got rid of it. Got rid of the weed eater or the chainsaw. Like just doing stuff like that and having fun. And that may seem weird, but I don't have very much fun. I don't prioritize it. I have fun and I make fun and I have fun where I'm at. But for me to sit down and play video games for 6 hours on a Saturday, never done it. Did it last week? Yeah. I didn't check my phone. I didn't check social media. I didn't post anything. I didn't think about the news. I didn't do anything. Guess what? I was a happy boy. I was a happy guy. I was a happy guy. So when I was reflecting upon my year, I'm like, am I proud? Because I'm always thinking about that word. What can I do today that I can have a sense of pride with? And so I think about it. And here's the lessons that I learned, because I want to get into these because there's a lot of them. When you're talking to people, and these are random. So these are just lessons that I was thinking about that are really important that I know you guys can use in your everyday life. So one of the things I started doing last year was having people clarify, especially here on the podcast, but in personal one-on-one conversations, I was having them clarify the word they were using. So for example, if somebody said, "Oh, Chris, it's going to be so hard." And I would say, "Okay, tell me what hard means." "Oh, Chris, you're so anxious." Or, "Okay, tell me what anxious means to you." Because what I found, and you will find too, when you stop and you sit there and think about the words you're using, especially like, "Oh, everyone's screwed up and everything is wrong and the world is so shitty and da-da-da-da," and all those general comments, those paint pictures in your brain. So you're literally have a paintbrush with your words and you're painting a picture. And so you can paint a picture of the world being terrible, or you can paint a picture of the world being challenging, but really a beautiful place when you think about it, right? I tell people all the time, like, get off social media, get off the news, and go out and live in the real world and talk to people, and you'll find that everybody is really pretty cool. People are having bad days and tough times and challenges, and some people are short and whatnot, and you just wish them well. You call them a Karen or whatever. Feel bad for Karens. Sorry, all the Karens that are listening. It sucks. But, when I did that, I started really listening even more, and I would ask people more questions like, "Okay, so why do you think that would be so hard? What do you think is on the other side of hard?" Oh, sense of accomplishment, right? I mean, when you think back in your life, when you've done things that are hard, do you look back and are you grateful for those situations? Even though you wouldn't want to repeat them, but are you grateful for them? And so I had people redefining the words that they were using. And guess what I found? Probably about 99% of the time when I would ask that, specific about that specific word, they would come back and say, "You know what? That was a poor choice of words, Chris." So if you're using a poor choice of words when you're talking to somebody else, good Lord, what's going on in the conversation in your brain, right? Are you aware? "Oh, I'm so stupid. I always screw it up," or "I never get things done," or "I'm never finished." All that stuff is creating that picture of your belief system, of your confidence. And I'm not telling you to lie to yourself, but I'm telling you to stop and sit there and say, "Do I always screw things up?" If I talk to my 3 best friends or the 3 people that I'm closest to, would they say I always screw? No, they would say this, they would say that. And I've had coaching clients, I've done it myself, where I've gone out to people, I'm like, "Tell me 3 words that describe me." And they're never lazy, unforgettable, or stupid. They're like motivational, energetic, kind. Like, they're all these different words. And when you go out there and do that, I challenge you to do it. Put on social media and say, "Describe me in 3 words." And people will do that. And it's amazing when you sit there and you start to look for the similarities. You're like, "Okay, do I see myself that way? Do I see myself as a kind person?" Yes, I do. Okay, how can I focus more on the kindness than the things I forget? Because guess what? If I forget things a lot of times, I can get sticky notes, right? I have sticky notes. I probably put things on sticky notes. I have pads. I have notepads. I have digital reminders. I have dry erase boards. I forget things because I'm like ADHD on crack. So I use tools in my toolbox to help me remember things, right? I will put things on my calendar 6 months in advance to say, "Hey, change the water filter." Because I'll say, "Oh, when's the last time we changed the water filter?" And if you change water filters and things like that, right, take a Sharpie and write the date on it. So that way, if you don't take notes, you take it out and you go, "Oh shit, we replaced this 3 years ago." Yeah, right. So this tip is really just that importance of choosing your words carefully, right? And when you're talking to other people, don't just take for granted what it is that they're saying. Ask them deeper questions. "Hey, tell me why you're so tired." Like, I had somebody tell me not too long ago, they said, "Oh, I have no time in my day." And I said, "Tell me what your day looks like from the time you get up to the time you go to sleep." And well, I get up, check my phone, brush my teeth, make my coffee, check social media a little bit. Usually make myself something to eat, maybe go for a walk, maybe read, and it's like, okay, well, can you tighten all that up? Can you tighten that up? Do you really need to do those things? And we started questioning that. And it's just because she had always done them. Well, I guess it's just a habit. It's just a routine. I'm like, what would it be like if you gained an hour back every single day and you applied that hour to your business or to your hobby or to your exercise or to your health or to your relationship or to your learning? You take that hour, 7 hours a week, and you start to compound that information. You start to compound that knowledge, and you start to compound the results of you using that information, those tools, like listening to this podcast or watching the podcast. You watch it every single week. You take the things that I talk about here, which is going to be a lot today, and you sit there and you make a list and you go, hey, those rules are really cool. I'm going to make it a plan over the next 6 months to use 4 of those rules. And I'm going to change my life, and I'm going to make a determination. I'm going to make a commitment and a promise to myself that I'm not going to give up when I fail, or when I make a mistake or something like that. Because so oftentimes, there I go again, I'll just give up. That's why a lot of resolutions, people don't even make it to February. Oh, there I go again. I don't even know why I bother. So think about that. Clarify the words that you use. Like I said before, this year, I made it a point to have fun. It's made it a point to relax, to do things that I would normally feel guilty for doing. And essentially, I don't work a corporate job anymore. I do my coaching and I do the podcast and I do some other things, some light consulting, and have a group coaching program, by the way, if you guys are all interested. It's fantastic. But you need to make things a priority. And if you're constantly being busy and you're constantly being overwhelmed and you're constantly struggling and you're telling yourself that, all work and no play makes Sally a dull girl. So what is it you can do? Can you schedule time to have fun? And that's what I did. And it was tough. There was times where I was sitting there going, oh my God, I feel guilty. I feel embarrassed. Why do I feel like that? It's because the rules that I had told myself, like, you get to play after you deserve it. But the thing was, when I was younger and I was in corporate and everything, I never really saw myself as deserving. I mean, I had lots of fun, don't get me wrong, but there was always an emotion behind it, or I had to do so much to earn that right to spend the money, or earn that right. For example, this last week, I went and bought a $400 gaming steering wheel because I was like, hell yeah, let's get into the gaming. We got a PS5 for my son and me for Christmas. And I said, you know what? I'm going to have some fun. I downloaded some games. I went to GameStop and got a GameStop membership, and I bought the steering wheel, and I brought my stand downstairs, and I played racing games for like 6 hours. And I was like, oh my God, I've never done this. My kid was like, man, Dad, I've never seen you play games this long. And it felt great. It felt great. And I'm like, man, you know what? I need to do more of that. And that's when it made me think about that rule. Like, so oftentimes we're pushing and we're pushing and we're pushing. And I ask people, what do you have on your calendar that you're looking forward to? Not too many people have things. Some people, do, but the people that don't have anything to look forward to, I'm like, when was the last thing that was on your calendar that you look forward to? I'm like, oh man, I haven't taken a vacation. I haven't done this. I haven't done that. I'm like, what would it be like to start putting some things on your calendar? Maybe 4 things a year, right? Once a quarter, you do something for yourself. You go get your nails done. You go get a massage. You have a spa day. You take your husband or your wife and have a hotel room for a night. You go down to wherever it is. You go into the city. You go for a meal. You go for a vacation. I made the decision over Christmas. I'm like, you know what? We haven't gone on a vacation since 2022. And we've been talking about doing this Alaska cruise and money, and I said, let's fucking do it. Like, I'm not getting any younger. I'm going to be 57 next month. And you sit there and you think about doing these things, and then I'll do them next year. I'll do them next year. And then it's like, okay, am I going to be able to enjoy them if I put it off for another 10 years? Right. And so I'm going to do it someday. Like, let's just pull the trigger. I surprised my family and said, we're going to go on a 7-day cruise, go on to Alaska. And I felt, I was still buyer's remorse and saying that out loud and looking at the money and saying, hey, let's get a cabin with a patio, because we've heard so many horror stories about being internal. I get seasick. So there's a lot of things to decide, but it was like, okay, now we have something we look forward to. And my wife's planning the excursions, and is it gonna be expensive? Yeah, it's gonna be fucking expensive. Like our Italy trip, we just barely paid that off. And that was 4 years ago. And it took us 4.5 years to save up for it. So that's the challenge that we get to incorporate with ourselves. Hang on one second. So, we're going to have to do some editing on that. Somebody came to the door and the dogs are barking. So that's life, right? Life happens. All right, let's get on to the next rule. So make sure you're advocating for your fun. That's what we're talking about. All right, next thing you got to do is you got to advocate for your health. The lesson I've learned this last year, oh my God, I've always been, well versed on my health and like look at my blood test. And I even had spreadsheets where I compared the blood test over year. That's before Quest did that. And it's really so important that you look at the blood test results and you ask questions and you push your doctors to sit there and say, okay, that's not good enough. Or to go get another doctor. Like my doctor said, oh, everything's fine. I said, I went to another doctor and they're like, oh, you have low iron. You have high carbon dioxide in your system. You have all these things going on. I'm like, yeah, because my other doctor was like, oh, you're in the range. So you have to sit there and say, okay, I'm in the range for everybody else, but I'm a unique individual. I'm a 56, almost 57-year-old male, blah, 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 all these different things and take these medications. And so I have a unique situation. So I had to sit there and say, I have to go look at another doctor. And I have to look at the fact that the doctors are a great distance away. So my tip to you is to take your health very seriously. And I got people like, oh, I haven't had a physical in years. I haven't gone to the doctor. I don't know my blood tests, all these different things. I mean, that's fine until the day it's not. Until the day you get the diagnosis that you kind of knew that you had, but you didn't want to face the reality. You get diabetes. And I've seen people get type 2 diabetes, type 1 diabetes, and they regret it, or they get cancer, or they get this, or they get that, right? Oh, I should have paid attention. Oh, I should have ate better. Oh, I regret. You got to take responsibility for your health. You got to take responsibility for what you're putting in your gullet. Nobody's going to sit there and make you take your vitamins. No one's going to sit there and make you take your supplements or anything else like that. It's a matter of fact of you having to take that proactiveness and take that responsibility for yourself and not just let the experts do it, because they practice medicine. It's not the fact that they do medicine, but they practice medicine. And so you got to do that. So that's another big lesson I've learned, and that I'm continuing to learn and continuing to pay attention to, because it's still not fixed. As you can see, I am sweating if you guys are watching this. Hang on one more second. Jesus. Okay. So next tip is, here's an interesting one. And when going back to the health, we often look at the symptoms and we treat the symptoms. But here's another aspect of that rule I just read that I wrote down, is stop looking at this. I mean, you got to look at the symptoms, but what's the root cause, right? What's the root cause that's laying down the situation? Jesus Christ. What's the situation? Like, what is causing that? What is it that you're putting into your body? Sit there and say, I don't know if I'm gluten intolerant, but you continue to eat gluten and you continue to feel terrible. And then you wonder why. And it's like, what is that going to do for you? Right? When you sit there and you ignore it, like I tell people, like, quit drinking alcohol, quit taking sugar. If you're in so much pain, stop taking things that will inflammate your body. Right? When I quit drinking alcohol, hard alcohol, and when I quit taking sugar and gluten, guess what? My pain levels went extraordinarily down. And I went back to my doctor and I said, how come you never ask me what I eat? And he says, never really thought about it. And I said, guess what? The things that you put in your mouth have an effect on your body. And so when you put different things in your body and you put low glycemic food in and stuff like that, and you start tracking your blood sugar, I got blood sugar tracker, I got heart rate monitors, I've got Oura rings, I've got blood pressure monitors, I've got oxygen sensors, I now have infrared stuff. So it's about that, taking that proactive responsibility for yourself instead of being the victim and saying, oh, I didn't know. Right now you go into ChatGPT and say, I'm a 35-year-old woman, build me a 7-day meal plan that only requires 10 minutes of meal prep. You can literally have the access to the tools that can do this for you for free. But are you doing it? That's what this show is about. This show is to light a fire under your ass, to sit there and say, you know what? I haven't been doing that. I've been doing that really good. And then also to share with me, send me a message and say, hey, Chris, here's what I learned. Like, let me know, let me hear from you. info@noexcusescoach.com. info@noexcusescoach.com. And the other thing I have learned this year is that you have to let go of who you once were. And that is tough. That is super, super tough. You have to let go of who you once were. Like when I think about my corporate life and my master's degree in organizational management and leadership and consulting and professional speaking and all these different things, that's kind of who I was. But that's not who I am now. There's still aspects of me of that, but there are going to be points in your journey where you're going to have to let go of that identity of who you were. And I've seen a lot of people going through this lately with their kids going off to college. I don't know why this year has been special in seeing that online and seeing that with my friends, but they've been dealing with the fact, like, what do I do now? I've been the PTA mom. I've been the soccer dad. I've been doing all these things. That's who I've been known for. But now my kids don't need me anymore. And that's a tough realization. Like, oh, I had to be doing this and doing that. And now I'm not needed at my job anymore. And then you go through all these different things. And so I encourage you, when you go through those experiences, don't run from them. Don't isolate yourself. Don't medicate yourself, which is something I did for a lot of years. Deal with it. And it's going to suck and it's going to be lonely, but you go out there and you look online and you find people that are going through the similar experiences. You find out you're not alone. I found a Carl Jung video. If you want it, send me an info@noexcusescoach.com. Send me an email and I'll send it to you. But it was Carl Jung video. And it talked about that. It talked about the soul's journey and releasing the identity of who we once were. And that was freaky and everything. And then I was listening to it and I'm like, oh, it's okay. And it talks about, you're going to want to hang on to that old person because it's safe and it's comfortable and it's certain, but that's not your journey. Your journey is to continue to grow and to continue to evolve. And that stuff is hard. It's uncomfortable. It really is. Cause you're like, oh man, I wish I was like, I said that out loud. I said, I wish I was like I was used to be, because I used to be super sarcastic and like more of a comedian and but now I'm just more comfortable in my skin. So I don't need to be that person. I was doing that because that's who I was, but also there was a part of it to get the validation, get the claps, get the laughs, get the likes, get the adulation, whatever it might be. But I don't need to do that anymore. So as you face the changes in your life, going from a parent to not a parent, or, non-parent to a parent, or your parents dying, or just careers and all these different things that happen, illnesses, like ask yourself the question, what am I supposed to be learning from this? Like, what am I supposed to be learning from this? Because so oftentimes we think it's unfair. And I was just watching a podcast with Chris Williamson, amazing guy, great podcast, Modern Wisdom. And he was talking about he got, I think it was him. Did he get shingles of the ear? I think it was him or somebody else, but he got something where, he got mold exposure. That's what it was. And like, he's a buff dude and, in great shape. And you would think he's living the best life. He's young, he's good looking, he's British, he's living here in the United States. He's got top rated podcasts from Spotify, doing all these things, but he was miserable. He's like, and I did it by myself. I'd have to go to bed at 7:00 and wake up at 8:00 in the morning and, just do all these things and go to these doctors like I'm going, and being frustrated and he said specifically, he goes, I feel like this was specifically made for me to challenge me. And if I would continue. And I do believe that, sometimes people say God is testing me, and it's so true. Sometimes God, source, universe, whatever it is you want to believe in, is testing you. Right? When I think about doing this podcast, and it's not a Joe Rogan podcast or a Chris Williamson podcast, but it's continuing to grow. We're in so many countries now. I think 98 countries. We're in Latin America, huge. So thank you guys, my brothers and sisters there, all over the world. We're all over the world now. And it's so crazy, but it's not, Spotify numbers that are exorbitant, but it's me making an impact in my way. And for that, I'm happy and I'm proud of that. And I couldn't continue to teach you these lessons and share these opportunities with you if I'm not changing as well, if I'm not growing as well. So it really needs to be that focus and that determination for yourself to say, where am I going next? Right? Who am I becoming next? And sometimes you have to let people go in your life. You have to let identities go. It's like, I don't do spreadsheets anymore. I'm not known as the leader guy. I'm not known as, and that's okay. But it does take time for you to release that. And you can't do it alone, and don't try to ignore it and don't try to cover it up. Okay. All right. So here's another lesson. And I actually wrote here, I've been reminded tremendously this year that you never get do-overs. And it's really super important to embrace and be present in the moments now and really savor it because they'll be gone. And then what we have. So like so much, we think we're going to do it over. And it's really about being present in life. Like, can you be present in life? Can you show up and sit there and think like, okay, right now for me, the big thing about showing up is being a dad. Like my kid's 9 years old. He just turned 9 years old. And I think, okay, I'm thinking about this and that in the book. And I'm like, my kid's going to be 18 years old before I know it. And if I put my 9-year glasses on, okay, where am I going to be in 9 years? I'm going to be in a totally different place. 9 years, I'll be, let's say I'm 56. So I'll be 66, 65. If you want to do the math correctly, 65, 66. I mean, come on. I'm going to be in a different place physically, mentally. I may be in a better place. Who knows, right? With technology and things that are happening, I don't know. I don't know what the world is going to have in store for us with AI. I've talked about this on the show. I've had some pretty vulnerable, heartfelt shows this last probably 6 months. in talking about what's going on with artificial intelligence, what's going on with politics, what's going on with the world and all these different things. And yeah, it's scary and it's freaky and it's uncertain, but that's further evidence to sit there and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to enjoy this moment. I'm going to be present right now. Right. And I'm going to do that so that I can ultimately be at peace when I do get older. And I sit there and I think about it, the fact that I heard this piece of advice this year, and it said, plan for the last decade of your life. And I've never heard that before. I never heard that said, plan for the last decade of my life. Like, you know, usually you're planning for right now. So if I think about my last decade, being honest, I'm thinking it's going to be between 75 and 85. Right? My mom made it to 69. She was unhealthy. So I know I can at least make it to 69. And my grandmother made it to 74. I think my grandfather made it to 72. So I'm thinking I'm doing 75 to 85. And I'm thinking about the last 10 years of my life and where I'm at now. And the honest truth is I need to make sure that what I'm putting in my body and the exercise and the physical activity that I'm doing supports flexibility, supports balance, supports getting pushed over and knocked over, because the studies show that when you're older and you fall and you break a hip, something like 6 months later, half the people are dead. Like they never, and there was like 80% of people never return to their normal life, but you can get hip replacements. You could do all sorts of stuff. But again, it's that regret that you didn't do more now. And so I'm a hire a trainer. I've got 10 training sessions, and I'm just going to focus on core and balance and self-weight exercises and doing stuff like that, challenging myself in new ways, right? Because you don't get do-overs, and you get one body. You get one body, you get one life, and regrets suck. I mean, it's simple as that. So you get to take that choice, and you get to look at people in your life. You know, do you have anybody in your life who regretted not taking better care of themselves? No, nobody ever regrets taking better care of themselves, but people do regret. And I've seen it so many times. I should have got my mammograms. I should have got my prostate exam. I should have got my colon cancer. I should have got this. I should have got that. I've had 2 upper endoscopies and 1 colonoscopy this year. I've had 3 colonoscopies in my life, and I'm only 56, right? So that proactiveness. Oh, you want a camera stuck up your ass? No, but guess what? I don't want to find out I have colon cancer and have to have my ass removed or my colon removed or shit in a bag. I'd fucking rather go have a camera put up my ass than shit in a bag any old fucking day of the week. Come on. I'd rather not have my gallbladder taken out. Oh, you might need your gallbladder out. No, I want my gallbladder. So I want to take care of it. I want to take care of my liver. And that's why I stopped drinking hard alcohol 2 years ago, whatever it was. Right? No regrets. No regrets. Okay. Hope these tips are helping you. I apologize for the dog barking in the background. I think the guy showed up to change the sprinkler, and it's right outside the front door. So I apologize for that, but that is life, right? This is what happens. We continue to go. We continue to persevere. And God's honest truth, I almost stopped the podcast and said, oh, fuck it, I'll do it later. But we don't. We keep going. And I know you guys have things in life too that happen like that. We're all in this together. And that's one thing I'm seeing in podcasts that people are really wanting from people in personal development and motivational space, whatever you want to call it, is they want authenticity. And that's something you will always get with me. And you've always gotten for the last 7 years of this podcast and my social media at No Excuse Coach or at Christopher Rausch, whatever you want to pick. It's always been me just talking to you, whether it's a walk and talk video. You guys can see I'm on my YouTube channel. I got so many coaching clients just from pulling out my phone and walking and talking and having it bounce and not having a gimbal. I have a gimbal that I've never really used. And I got, if I have a gimbal, then it won't shake and it's going to be so much better. Guess what people want now? They just want people to hold their phone and shake. And so I'm seeing these people, but with all these podcast studios and multiple locations and camera angles and editing and sponsors and all that stuff. And I'm seeing them do what I do. This isn't edited. I'm not going to go back and edit that out. It is what it is, right? Does it suck? Does somebody listen to it, maybe go, oh, fuck, well, that's stupid, and turn off? Yeah. But the rest of you guys can hit that little fast forward button, beep, 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 like I do on my podcast. And I hit fast forward until it's not there anymore. And 99% of the podcasts don't have that. So it's not a big deal. It is what it is. Here's another lesson, right? What's this lesson? Here's another lesson that's super huge that I want to make sure I get across tonight is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And you may say, what's that mean, Chris? I guess that phrase came from the fact that people would throw the bathwater out with the baby in it. I guess, I don't know, because the bathwater was dirty. But anyways, the phrase goes, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I'm seeing a lot of people saying that because you voted for this person or because you believe in this or your stance on vax or whatever it might be, you're a stupid person, you're an idiot, you're an asshole, you don't like humanity, and I'm gonna disregard you. And I've seen people do that in the family. I've seen people do that in friendships. And yes, sometimes you need to do that. You need to take a look at your values and your values of your friends and take a hard look at that. But let's not be so quick to judge. Let's not be so quick to say, oh, because that person believes in that person. I know people that are hardcore, whatever side you want to pick. Hardcore, it doesn't matter. Hardcore. But guess what? They're philanthropic. They're good to their family. They've been married for 35 years. They own businesses. They employ people. They give back to charity. They do events. They have nonprofit organizations. So you sit there and look at that and say, oh, that person's that. But what about all the other components? And what about all the other aspects of that? Same thing with you. Like if somebody's judging you on one thing, you sit there saying, you know what? You don't know me. I'm not going to accept your opinion of me because you only know an aspect of me. You don't know all these other things that I do. So why would I take your opinion as truth when you're only talking about one aspect of my life? You only see one aspect of my personality. And that's something I had to learn as well. When people say, oh, you're this, you're that. I'm like, no, I'm not egotistical. No, I'm not self-absorbed. No, I'm not. I'm a sarcastic, self-deprecating guy who's trying to fit in. And then once I started realizing that I needed to share more of that, people got to know me better and like, oh, Chris, I thought you were this, but you're that. And I can't tell you how many questions or how many stories that I have of that specifically. People saying, oh, Chris, oh my God, I thought you were so this and so that. And now I got to know you and you're not. Right. So in your own life, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Don't give people an opportunity to explain themselves. Give them an opportunity to say, hey, where did you form that belief? Hey, would you mind doing something for a week? Could you go 2 weeks without looking at that point of view and look at the exact opposite point of view and then come back and have a conversation with me and tell me what you learned? And most people won't do that. I did that for 2 weeks once, way back, probably 2016, 2015. I can't remember what it was. And I said, I'm going to watch Fox News for 2 weeks. And guess what? I came back and I told my friend, I'm like, oh my God. I said, if you start to watch that stuff, you could really believe it. You could believe anything that you see. And that's the thing. That's another rule or another lesson within the lesson is nothing is always what it appears to be. There's 3 sides of the truth. There's your side, my side, and then the real side. And this even stems back to thinking about your childhood and all the other things that you think have happened wrong to you. Your recollection of those events is based on your perspective, right? So if you tell your side of the story, I'm like, oh my God, that was terrible, blah, blah, blah. If I go talk to your parents and say, oh, but there was this and there was this, there was this. Okay, you omitted that from the story. That helps me understand a little bit more of how those consequences or how those results or how those outcomes came. So you got to take a look at the whole situation and you got to sit there and identify the goodness and not identify the differences, but identify the similarities. Can you do that? Because that's something I've found is like, okay, I disagree with you on that. And I have friends that we completely disagree politically, but fundamentally we agree on the outcomes, which is funny. So instead of focusing on what we disagree on, it's like, okay, if you were president for a day, what would you do? Or how do you recommend us solving the situation of homelessness? How do you solve the situation of mental health? Is it government's responsibility or is it the community's responsibility? How was it back in the tribal days? Was it, how did this all come to be? How can we return to that? How can we make it better? How can we make it different? Right? The point is to be on the side of solutions and not side of problems. And that's a reminder to you guys. You can sit there and look at it. Am I part of the problem or am I part of the solution? And bitching about it, moaning about it, and calling your friends up and say, did you see this? And sharing all that stuff and say, there's a further substantiation of why I believe this. And I see people doing it all the time. Look at me. Yeah, this is why. The stuff going on with Venezuela. I got people on one side and I got people completely on their other side. Some people, it's horrific. Some people, it's the best thing that's happened. It's a chess move and it's this and it's that. I don't know. I'm not a fucking president. I'm not a military general. I don't know. And I bet you if I go look at the news reports, I'll come back away from it going, I still don't know. But so we sit there and we get general parts of information, then we make an assumption, we put it together as a generalization, we think that's true. But that's just an opinion. That's just an opinion based on your perspective of the truth. And who knows that that's the truth, right? There's so much going on. So I've decided am I going to pay attention to it? A little bit. Or am I going to focus on my life? Am I going to focus on the video games? Am I going to focus on being a great dad? Am I going to focus on what I put into my body? Am I going to focus on being a good person? Am I going to focus on giving the best podcast I possibly can so that people listening from all around the world will make changes to their life and go tell their friends and say, hey, I'm listening to this guy called Christopher Rausch on the Raw Unscripted Podcast. And man, I'm learning some really cool stuff. And he's really energetic and he's really straight to the point. And sometimes he goes off in circles a little bit, but that's who I am. Because it is raw and unscripted. And I intentionally chose raw and unscripted because I am raw and unscripted. And I do script things out, and I don't script them out, but I give myself notes, because otherwise I'll be sitting here talking for 17 hours, right? What's the next thing, right? Control. It kind of goes hand in hand with this, but just take a look at your life. Take a look at your life. Take a look at what you're mad about. Take a look at what you're frustrated about, and ask yourself, what am I doing to change it? And if the answer comes, well, Chris, there's nothing I can do, then ask yourself if that's really true. So if there's a homeless problem in the United States and the world, hunger problem, you can't save the entire world, but could you feed 20 people once a month in your local neighborhood? Can you go to the park and just start a tradition like, hey, on the first Saturday of every month, we're going to bring spaghetti dinner over here just to show you that we care. And maybe if somebody else sees that and somebody else does that once a month, and then somebody else does that once a month, and somebody else does that once a month, and somebody says, hey, you guys are feeding the homeless. Hey, I'm a mental health professional. While we're feeding them, we can do counseling sessions and we can start doing these things, right? That's how change starts to happen. That's how nonprofit organizations start to happen. But if you're just sitting there, oh man, we have this problem and and I see people say, oh, we've had this problem for 20 years. I'm like, and what have you done? What have you specifically done? I voted. Okay, good. Right? Do you go back and look at like the people in your city council and what they vote for and what their opinions and stances are on the things that are most passionate to you? Do you get involved in your school? Like, I don't want to become on a PTA, but there's a thing on my refrigerator right now that I'm considering running for something to do with the school so that I can be a voice of reason, perhaps a voice of life to people that are in that room that might be making decisions that are going to impact our kids that maybe need a little common sense approach, that maybe need somebody like me to sit there and say, No, somebody who's strong enough to sit there and say, I disagree with that. Or to play devil's advocate, which I've done plenty of times. Actually, I have to call in for jury duty again tomorrow. In jury duty, I was the foreman one time, and I sat there and I specifically made a declaration that was against everything that I thought. And I watched everybody's face and and one person says, I agree with that. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I said, tell me your opinions, tell me your side of things. And then he told me, and I said, well, I did that just to see who in here thought that. I said, because my actual opinion is completely guilty or completely this or whatever it might be. So sometimes you have to play devil's advocate. Sometimes you have to sit there and take that responsibility to realize, what it is that I can control, what it is that I can take that responsibility for. And it's that R word, right? And that's why people coach me, because they have a hard time taking that responsibility. So it's better for me to sit there and say, okay, asking them questions and giving them permission to sit there and say, you know what, I don't know, or I do suck, or whatever it might be, but that changes today. So sadly, people focus on what they can't control, right? I see these unhealthy people and they're like, oh, this, that, and they're miserable. And I'm like, you're not making the right choices. Like, go take a walk. Like, you can do these things and you won't be as miserable and you'll be more happy and you won't be sitting there blaming everything else. And especially, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, you won't be waiting for someday to be happy. Be happy right now. Be happy the fact that you're initiating discipline in your life, and make a promise in 2026 that, you know what, I'm going to keep my promises. My goals for this year aren't that much different than last year. It's to finish the book and get the book published, grow the podcasting YouTube channel simultaneously, and focus on my health, and then focus on the clutter as well. But the health is a 3-pronged approach. It's physical, mental, and spiritual. So being more in that vein, coaching's fine. Podcasts want to grow and continue to, so I have those goals, but the big goal is really just to be present with my family and to be happy and to be a good role model for my son. He's 9 years old, so I can't put the excuse on, oh, he's a kid and he won't remember it. Now he's starting to ask questions. Now he's making realizations. Now he's making assumptions of his own. Like he was telling me he couldn't get a video game. He's like, oh, I'm a bad kid. And I'm like, no, you're not. I'm a terrible blah, blah, blah. And I was like, where is this coming from? But that's his imagination for me. That's his beliefs for me. That's him taking little bits and pieces and going, okay, what do I make this domain about me? Right? He's developing his sense of individuality. And so more than ever, I need to be sensitive to that and have those conversations. And so one thing I started doing 2025 was every night he can ask me 2 questions. And then he started like, well, you can ask me 2 questions. So now it's about that discovery, like, okay, what today made you sad, or what have I done recently that's made you unhappy or made you feel terrible, or what's the best thing that happened this weekend, right? Having those questions, having that dialogue, having that conversation, right? You got to have open and honest conversation with people. And that starts by being proactive on your own side of things. We talked about that a little bit. The other thing I've learned, and this is the scary part, and I did a whole show kind of on it, is that artificial intelligence is coming. Whether we like it or not, whether we want it or not, and people are going to be displaced out of jobs, there's going to be the whole world is literally changing. And for me, that could get overwhelming and suffocating and debilitating, or it could be exciting, right? I could be fearful or I could be excited. That's something I've talked about on the podcast many, many times, right? It's just your focus on what it is that you want to do. But everything is coming. And now, so what do we got to do? I got to take that responsibility for myself and not just sit there and say, oh, I wonder what's going to happen. It's like, okay, what core life lessons can I teach my son now and continue to teach him so that whatever happens, he has the skills within that to be able to adapt, right? We're teaching adaptability. So I'm teaching a personality skill, like, going above and beyond. Like, who are you going to be that person, right? There's going to be a pool of billions of people, so millions of people, whatever it might be. What's going to help you stand out above the rest? Whether you're an entrepreneur and you're serving people, I was just talking with a buddy of mine yesterday, helping him out with stuff. And I said, what's going to differentiate you from all the other spiritual leaders out there doing a spiritual 101 book? Like, what's going to set you apart? So having him embrace and identify his own curiosities, and like, he's really curious about guns and blowing stuff up. And I don't know, maybe he's going to be a fucking technical expert in the military. I don't know. But I can't squash that. I can't sit there and say, no, you can't do that, because maybe that's his wheelhouse. Maybe that's his thing. Like, I meet people in guns and they know calibers and know all these things and blah, blah, blah. He's into engineering. Maybe that's the thing that's going to happen. But my indication for you is to be proactive on that. If you're in a job that can be replaced, like, you should be taking responsibility for what you can do next. If you have a side hustle, you should start a side hustle today. Right? Whatever it might be. I started coaching and speaking while I was doing my corporate career so that I knew one day when I transitioned, it wasn't going to be easy, but make that transition. And you do those things. So you have to take that proactive responsibility to say, hey, like, AI is coming. My job could get replaced. So what is it that you're going to do? How are you going to survive? What is your family going to do? Right? You got to have those conversations. So it's really about all that. It's about what it is that you're going to do with this information. And I talk about that all the time here on the show. Like, you can show up and be inspired and be like, yeah, Chris, that was so fucking awesome. And then you go on to the next podcast. But you got to stop and you got to sit there and say, okay, out of the last 45 minutes of Chris talking, what were the three things? What were the three things I could take from this podcast and start to implement, start to take a look at, start to research, start to put into a place into my life? Maybe I could start using sticky notes every day. I got sticky notes on my computer monitor for major things. It's like, remind myself, what are my values? Sit there and look down. Hey, am I being in alignment with my value right now? Am I being loving right now? No, I'm not. I'm being an asshole. All right. What do I need to do to change that? Right? Physical reminders of what it is that we could do. It's about that focus, but most of all, it's about the intentionality. If you intend on just getting by and just surviving, then that's what your results are going to indicate. But if you're intending on setting yourself above the rest, if you're setting the intention of changing things and keeping promises to yourself, then who do you need to become? Right? So here's the question you can ask yourself. By the end of this year, 2026, what needs to happen in order for me to feel fulfilled? What needs to happen in order for me to feel proud of myself? What events do I need to do? And don't make it 17, right? My health, my clutter, my fun. That's what I focused on for the most part last year. And more so than you would imagine, it was challenging. It was very challenging. It was very isolating and very different, very lonely, all sorts of different things, right? And I'm still going through that transition. And then I'll get to another part where I'm going to transition again when my kid's older. And I'm like, okay, what do I do now? And maybe by that time I'm written 5 books. And maybe that time it's going to be an author in professional speaking in my 80s. I don't know. Right? But just for God's sakes, enjoy the process. You're listening to this podcast all the way through to this point. You watched it. Like, take that responsibility for you. No matter what's happened in your life, everything that has happened and everything that is happening is preparing you for what's next. Right? I looked at Chris Williamson, the podcaster, and he was like, man, I have all this stuff. And then I had to go through this shit. And now on the other side of it, he's like, I had to go through it to be able to share with you guys how to get through that when you go through it. And so now I just started watching an episode where he had a mold expert on. And I'm like, I've not felt right in years, pretty much ever since I lived in this house. So I'm wondering if there's mold bacteria that's just enough to make me borderline sick or make my wife borderline sick. I don't know. So that's okay. Let's get a mold expert in here. Let's start looking at that. Okay, that costs money. So what? If it costs money and we find that there's mold and you get better and you feel better and you do better and you're happier, then that's all worth it. So look at the challenges as opportunities to rise above. Look at the challenges to set the example for your kids, for your friends, for your spouse, for whoever it is that might be your coworkers. They may look to you and say, oh my God, look at Roger. He's doing something. Look at Steve. He's lost weight. Oh yeah. What are you doing? Oh, I'm doing the Monjaro thing. Oh yeah. I don't like that, but yeah, it's working for me. I mean, I've never been healthier and I don't know, like just get out there and live your life and make a plan to be intentional and sit there and say, you know what? I'm going to stop with the excuses. I'm going to stop with the excuses. I don't have time. I don't have money. I don't have energy. I don't have anything. I'm going to pick one thing. What I don't have enough time. Okay. What can I do to improve my time? What can I do to get my family involved in the chores around the house? What can I do? Right? What are the opportunities? Right? In the challenge, there's an opportunity. And in the challenge, on the other side of that, there's growth and there's confidence. And I know I will go through more things in my life. I may go through my wife being sick. I may go through my son being sick. I don't know what I'm going to go through, but I know that all these different things have helped me prepare and are preparing me for what's next. Right? So I think about that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back here next week on the Raw Unscripted show. I appreciate you guys. Please go to iTunes and go to wherever you can. Leave us reviews. Send me an email, info@noexcusescoach.com. Let me know what you want here on the show as far as topics. This year, we've got new guests. We've got new subjects. We've got all sorts of new stuff coming your way. I'm going to be learning with you on some things that out there that I don't understand. And I think it'd be kind of a cool thing for us to bring some information to the show, look at it and make our own judgments about it. And, and look at those things that are going on in the world today. So I'm going to be doing that with you, but I appreciate you sticking with me. I appreciate you listening through the dogs barking and everything else. And year number 7, let's fucking go. All right. So no excuses. You got your marching orders.